All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. I have the honor and the privilege to introduce someone who is now a friend and now a colleague, which is super cool, Dr. Kirkpatrick. She is Dr. Kirkpatrick. She started her career here at Wichita State. She was an undergrad in IMC, and then she moved on and did a master's degree where she learned to teach and did a fabulous job teaching 111. After that, she went on to Mizzou, and she got her Ph.D. 2 years ago. Is that
1 year
right?
ago.
1 year ago?
Technically.
Technically.
It was in the summer.
Oh, okay, because you walked in. Okay. Now she's at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. She is one of our neatest people in terms of the diversity of her research. So some of her more recent research looked at social media and how people portray themselves as moms in particular, and then what that does to the mom. Because I don't know about you all, but if you look at everybody's social media, you figure out that everybody is a much better parent than you are, which is probably not healthy. So anyway, she is also our One to Watch. So we are honoring her today with a One to Watch award. So thank you, and a small thank you for coming to talk to us.
Thank you. I'm honored and excited to be back.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm going to get out of the way. We will have time for questions, so I think you okay if people just ask you questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. She's been teaching long enough. She's got this. So just interrupt her with questions, or we'll answer some at the end. Yeah, thanks.
Sweet. Thank you so much for the introduction. So yeah, like she said, I started out here at Wichita State in the Elliott School back in 2011 and graduated in 2015 with my bachelor's degree. And I absolutely loved my time here as a student. I remember participating in Comm Week myself. I was just telling some of them I still have some of my t-shirts. And so now I have another one to add to the collection. But I got my bachelor's degree here and wasn't intending to stick around for my master's, but then did and really enjoyed that as well. And it made a huge difference in kind of where I've ended up today. So as Lisa said, I do teach now. So that's a big part of my job, but then a part of that is research as well. And I'm not going to dig too much into the research side of things and what I do in my roles, since I know most of you probably aren't pursuing a career in being a professor, but if that's something we want to talk about more during the Q&A session, I'm really happy to talk about that aspect of kind of what I do now too. But instead, what I wanted to focus today on is kind of the journey that got me to where I am now, and kind of the different ups and downs and experiences that I went through when I was in your shoes and still a student and trying to get to where I am now, which is having my dream job. So we're going to talk about the journey that I had and how it might relate to your all's journeys, and how you can take advantage of different opportunities to help discover your aha moment, which we'll talk a bit more about, and how that can lead to your dream job. So because I don't know any of you guys, I want to first start by getting a show of hands. How many of you feel pretty confident that you know what you want to do once you leave college? You know you have a dream job. Okay, now does somebody want to share what that job is up here? Event planning. Okay, awesome. How did you, or when did you decide that's what you want to do?
I do a lot of I help plan a lot of events for my sorority and the Greek life on campus, and I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing.
Nice. What sorority?
Alpha Phi.
Nice. I was a Tri Delta, so nice. Good to see you're involved. Somebody else. I saw other hands. Somebody want to share what their dream job is? No one else? That's okay. Part of what we're talking about today is kind of becoming more confident in knowing what we want as our dream job and how we can get to that stage. So I won't call on anybody else again after this one, but how many people, thinking back to what your dream job is, or where you want to end up, how many of you have had an internship so far, or have shadowed someone in those experiences? Awesome. So that's kind of what we're talking about today too, is those different opportunities that can help get you out into the real world before you end up doing what it is that you're hoping to do. But I don't want to instill fear in anyone or make anyone question what they're doing. But what if you happen to start your dream job and then you realize that it's not what you thought it would be? Or what if it is what you thought it would be, but you still find yourself not happy? Or what if maybe you're someone in the crowd who isn't sure what they want to do? Or maybe you're sure now, but a year from now, you're not going to be sure because things change. Or what if it's time to graduate and you still aren't sure what you want to do, but graduation is here? So these are things that sometimes students fear or have concerns about, thoughts about while they're a student. And you may think, I'm never going to worry about these things or have to deal with this because I'm so sure what I want to do. That's who I was when I came to Wichita State. I was dead set on becoming a news reporter and a news anchor. Here's baby Ciera back in 2011, 2012-ish. I was dead set on being a news reporter, and I was so confident in what I wanted to do. And then things changed. And now I am a professor at the University of Nebraska. So how did I get there? How did I go from having these ideas of what I wanted to do, but then suddenly all these things shifted and I ended up somewhere else? What happened was I had my aha moment. So according to Merriam-Webster, an aha moment is a sudden realization, inspiration, insight, recognition, or comprehension. It's something that we might talk about like in our advertising classes where we want people to have an aha moment and realize why they need our product that we're trying to sell them. But in thinking about your career and your journey to your career, I like to think of an aha moment as more this feeling of, yes, this is what I'm meant to be doing. So when I was a student, I was so sure that I was going to be a news reporter. Kevin Hager out in the crowd was amazing, and he helped me land an awesome internship at KWCH, and it was an amazing opportunity. I got to help with producing the nightly newscast. I was very involved in them helping to pick their stories, edit videos, write for the website, write for the newscast. But I had this, what I like to call my midlife crisis at 20, and figured out that I didn't actually want to do that as a career once I got out there and actually did it. And that was really hard for me to deal with because I had been so sure and I really did love it, but suddenly I had these like doubts in my gut. And that was a big conflict for me because here I was about to finish my degree and I wasn't so sure that that's what I wanted to do anymore. So then I believe there was some days in Lisa Parcells' office where I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Do I change my major? I think I mentioned law school at once and she was like, you're not going to law school. Like, what are you thinking? But anyway, so I shifted gears and I did what was the smartest thing for me was I tried out different things. So I got other internships and I tried different classes that I wasn't going to take. And I had different jobs that all let me experience different things within this broader world of communication so that I could feel a little bit more confident in knowing what different options were out there and what might be the good fit for me. And for me, I had an aha moment when I became a GTA in the college and I got to teach public speaking, which was nerve-wracking to think about at first. But that first day I went in and I taught public speaking to students here at Wichita State, and I walked out of the room, I was like, yes, this is what I'm meant to be doing. I fell in love with teaching in that moment, and I had this new passion and confidence in what I wanted to do. So my hope is that all of you and all of the other students that I interact with back at my university have this confidence that you feel like, yes, I know what I want to do. I know what I'm meant to do. And if that confidence or that moment shifts or changes or you have to discover it, that's okay. And so we're going to talk a bit about that moment and the importance of having an aha moment. So an aha moment, which some of you may have already had or some of you may have down the road, is important because it confirms or possibly redirects the direction that you're heading in. And this is important because, like I said, when you have that aha moment and you feel like you know what you're meant to be doing, it gives you the confidence that you're headed in the right direction, which then makes you more excited to be heading in that direction. And when you have confidence and excitement, then that leads to motivation. And when we're motivated, we stay on track better. We do the things that we need to do to get us past the aha moment into our dream job. And so when you have that aha moment and you have that confidence and that excitement, it helps you to take the journey to accomplish what it is that you want to get to. But what if you're sitting here and you haven't had that aha moment yet, right? Don't freak out. That's why we're here. We're here to talk about how you can get to that moment, which often aha moments aren't things that we can control. They just happen, maybe because of an experience we had in our sorority or in high school or in a class or some opportunity that we had. So it's not something that we just can control and be like, today I'm going to have my aha moment. I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to do it. But there are things that we can do to help lead us to those aha moments. So that's what I want to talk about. The first of which is internships. So we probably all know what internships are, right? It's a way for us to get some real world experience, some experiential learning in an environment where we hope to work one day, right? But I want you to think about internships a little bit differently. Don't just think about them in terms of the wonderful benefits that they have, you know, the networking, the connections, the skill building, the resume building. But I want you to think about internships as a way for you to explore your interests without having to go all the way in. So if you think about it, once you finish your degree and you start a job, you're pretty committed to that job, at least for a little bit, maybe for a long bit if you have like a contract that you're stuck with. But with internships, usually they're just short-term gigs. They're part-time. They may have a preset amount of time, like you're our intern for the fall 2022 semester. Do it long-term. Maybe you'll love it and maybe it'll turn into something long-term, and that's amazing. But this can be a way to kind of just dip your feet into different things and experiment with what's out there before you get to the end of your academic educational journey. And they can be very helpful in guiding the rest of your studies. So maybe you get into an internship and you realize, oh crap, like they expect me to have these skills and I don't have these skills yet. That can help you to know where you should spend your time as a student, what classes you should be taking. It can help you to discover interests that you might not have had. So maybe you get to do something at your internship that you haven't gotten to experience in class yet. And that can help guide your interests to help you to know what classes you should be taking. Maybe there are things that you hadn't thought about. The awesome thing about communication is that it's such a broad field in terms of the things you can do with a communications degree. And this is really awesome because there's so many opportunities, but that can make it difficult to identify where the right spot is for you, what career is right for you, what path you should be going on. But if you take the time to try out some different things while you're still a student, then that can help you to kind of navigate that. Another way you can discover an aha moment is through job shadowing. So think of this as observing someone that has the job that you want at a company like where you want to work. So when I was an undergraduate, I did some job shadowing of different people in different roles at some of the local advertising agencies. This was after I had kind of shifted gears away from news a little bit. I decided maybe that's the world for me. And so I went and I got to see what their day-to-day was like. And what's really cool about job shadowing is on your part, it's kind of a low effort thing. Like, yes, you have to identify who you're going to shadow and set it up with them, but it can be something that you do in just one day. It's one afternoon, and it can give you so much insight in that one afternoon to see what that job is really like and what it would be like to be in that situation. So you get a realistic look into what their day-to-day tasks are like, and you can compare that to what you thought it was going to be like. Is it all that you imagined? Or is it different? This gives you a chance to see the different perks that come along with the job, the different challenges, the different stressors. I remember when I was there, I got to sit in on some client meetings. So it was my first chance to really be in the real world and see what that client interaction was like. I think that day there was like some conflict too with a client. And so I got to experience that firsthand, which is something that happens a lot. And so getting to see those things in real life rather than just talking about them in the classroom can be a really great way to get a better understanding of what this industry is like. It's also a safe place and time to ask questions. So if you are shadowing someone, they probably know that you're there for a reason because you're interested in what they do in this area. And this is a time where you can hopefully feel comfortable asking questions that maybe you wouldn't want to have to be asking if you were actually starting your job on day one there. This is a time where it's a little more acceptable to ask questions and try to understand things. And so this is a time, again, to really get an understanding of what the industry is like before you've finished your degree and committed to being there. Then the next tip I have is networking. So like I talked about kind of already, there's so many different possibilities within communication, and you probably don't even know about all of the different opportunities that are out there, different careers, or what exactly they entail. So one of my best friends, who's also an alumni of the college, works for Interest Bank Arena as their senior marketing and booking director. So she basically gets to decide exactly who's coming to Interest Bank Arena, who's going to perform there. She runs their social media. She handles their backstage experience, and she gets to create gifts for everyone that performs at Interest Bank Arena. So she'll have like her cricket out and like be making them all these different unique things. And so those are things that we might not think about as duties that someone might have with a degree in communication and a job in communication. But by getting to know more people in this field, you can get a better understanding of what it is that they actually do in their job to help you identify what you might enjoy doing. And also in terms of learning about their current job, it's a great way to hear about the experience that got them there. So how did she get to that position that she loves so much now? What did she do when she was a student? What other jobs led her to get to where she is now? And so getting a better understanding of people in the real world is a great way to kind of navigate what your own journey might look like. And they're awesome for helping you to find short-term and long-term goals. That same friend of mine who worked at Interest Bank Arena during COVID, when obviously there were not huge shows going on at Interest, was laid off for a short period of time. And that was really hard for her because she loved her job so much. But she had done an amazing job of having internships and networking when she was a student, and someone that she had connected with but wasn't super close with knew that she was being laid off, and they said, you know what, I think we have a job for you that you can do remotely part-time in the meantime. And she ended up having something that allowed her to stay busy and keep making money just because of the connection she had made at a networking event. And so networking is awesome for a lot of reasons that we probably know. And then the last thing that I'll mention here in terms of opportunities to lead to aha moments is classes. So often students will have an aha moment right in class because they have an amazing professor or the topic is something that's super fascinating to them. And often when we're students, we have to take classes that maybe we're not excited to take. But I encourage you all to take them with an open mind, because the class that you think you might hate may be the class where you discover your aha moment. It can be the class that redirects what your emphasis area is or what you decide to pursue. Another professor I work with in Nebraska, he had an amazing career in international advertising, and he hated college as an undergrad. And I can't remember, he was like a biology major or something, but took an advertising class as an easy A, and he fell in love with advertising because of that class. And now he's had this amazing career in advertising, and now he teaches advertising students and shares that passion with them. So I encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, not just in what you take, but also in the experiences that you have within those classes. I remember, I'll admit, when I was a student here, it was so easy to, if I had to interview someone for an assignment or do a project, to rely on the friends and family I had. You know, I could go to them and do the interview I needed to do or ask them the questions. But I really encourage you to look for ways to step outside of your comfort zone. Once you get into the real world, you can't turn to your friends and family to interview them about everything that you're doing. We actually, when I taught back in Missouri, we had a rule that you could not interview anyone that you knew outside of that class. Everybody had to be a complete stranger to you, someone that you found. And we really pushed our students to be outside of class or outside of their comfort zones and make new connections. And all of these things can kind of go together. So when you're forcing yourself to interact with people that you don't know, that can help you to network and meet new people, which can lead to other opportunities. And so all of these things can lead to aha moments. But I also want to point out that even if you've already had an aha moment, all of these things are so important just to your journey, because this is a time for exploration and experience. You're never going to have an opportunity like this again where so much time is ahead of you in your future. Every day that goes by, more time is passing, you're getting older. And that's not to say you can't have an aha moment 20 years from now and switch careers. That happens too, and that's awesome for a lot of people. But now is a great time to really take advantage of all of the different opportunities and things that are going on, like Comm Week, that expose you to different people in the industry and different opportunities. And in addition to this, remember that no experience is wasted. So something is gained from every single experience that you have here. Sometimes the biggest takeaway can be that you figured out that that's not what you wanted to do. And even if it is something that you decide not to pursue, you probably still made connections and built skills that you can use. I still all the time reflect on the experiences that I had working in a newsroom and working at a nonprofit, doing all of these things that I don't do now, but they all taught me so many things, and they're things that I can share and use in my career today. So in thinking about those different experiences like internships and job shadowing, let's talk just a little bit about what to accomplish during those experiences. So there's the obvious things, right? We want to make connections. We want to build our network. We want to develop hard and soft skills, become better communicators, learn how to work on a team, get better at writing, video editing, whatever it may be. We want to build a portfolio. But I think it's really important to think about the not so obvious things that we can accomplish in these experiences. So things like learning the culture of the company and learning about their values and their norms. Being in an internship or a job shadowing experience can help you to kind of understand what the company politics are like and how to navigate those things. It can also be a good way to just figure out if it's somewhere that you can fit in. Is it somewhere that values the same things that you value? I actually have a student back in Nebraska right now who was in charge of coordinating this really cool event we had called Pride in the Workplace. And it was an event basically for the LGBTQ community and anyone who values diversity to get together and think about how pride affects the workplace and who you might want to work for. So if they're a place that doesn't value your lifestyle, doesn't value the same things that you value, maybe it's not a good place to work for, right? And it can be a good way to see if the job just overall fits the life that you're envisioning for yourself. So I try really hard to be someone who I live not to work, I work to live. So I want to be someone who work is something that I love and I put a lot of passion and energy into, but it's not the end all be all. I have a life outside of work. I have a family, I have hobbies and passions. And so when I was going through these different experiences of shadowing people and having internships, I tried to look at what these people's lifestyles were like. Was it going to match up with the lifestyle that I wanted to have? And I remember being in an internship and looking around, and I noticed that almost no one in the room had a wedding ring on. And it was just kind of an observation I made one day. But then I realized, okay, is it because this job isn't conducive to having a healthy relationship, to having a life outside of work, to having a family? And those are things that I wanted. It was really important that one day I would get married and have children. And so thinking about how the job that you're pursuing that you might want fits into this bigger picture of your life, which is ultimately what we're all about. We have these lives outside of work, is an important thing to think about. And I think with COVID, for example, a lot of people realize that they love working from home. They want to have a remote work option. But if you're pursuing something where that can't be an option, then that's something you should be keeping in mind. Do you love the job enough to give up some things that maybe you thought you wanted? It's an important thing to think about all the different aspects of a job in terms of family friendliness, the culture, the values, all of these things. And these are things that we can tap into when we take the time to explore. And so some questions that you can ask just to kind of get at that not so obvious when you're doing an experience like shadowing someone at a job is things like, what's a typical day like for you? Was today, let's say you just observed them in their job, was today a normal day for you? Or what are some of your routine aspects? Ask them what they like about their job, what keeps them in their profession. Some jobs are super stressful or have super crappy hours, but it's okay because they love it so much. And that's important too. If you love what you're doing and it doesn't feel like a burden or feel like you're going to work, then some of those things that might not be okay to other people are going to be okay for you to put up with. Ask them what the hardest part is of the job, what they found most surprising when they first started working there. Ask them if they ever spend time with their coworkers outside of work. This can be a big one to know, okay, do you guys just see each other at work? You put up with each other, get along for the sake of work, but you're not friends outside of this place? Or maybe they are friends outside of work, and that's something that's important to you. Ask them if they're satisfied with their current life balance. These might not be things that you would want to ask if you were interviewing for a job, but when you're just a student who's trying to explore and talk to people and shadow people, it's okay to ask things like this. Ask them, are there certain seasons that are harder for them than others? Do they work a lot of overtime? What's their schedule look like? One of my favorites too is, what are your interests outside of work? Because this is kind of like a trick question. If they don't have any hobbies, then maybe they don't have any time for any hobbies. And so this can be a way to kind of gauge how much time they actually spend outside of work or outside of the office. And it helps you just to kind of understand them too in terms of what they're interested in. But also in terms of just asking these types of questions, it's important to make those quiet observations. So observe the stress levels. Observe things like I did, looking to see, okay, who has children here? Who's married? Who has the lifestyle that I see myself having? Try to just kind of sit back every once in a while and take it all in and observe what the environment is like. All right. So now once you've had your aha moment, what do you do with that? How do you turn that moment into your dream career? It's 2 big steps. The first step is to make a plan, and then step 2 is to execute that plan. So when you're making a plan, learn as much as you possibly can about that job that you now know confidently that you want to do. Figure out what experience, what education, what skills you need for that job, and then identify opportunities that can help you get closer to that job. So what internships are available? What classroom experiences or out-of-class experiences can you take advantage of? What connections can you build? Think about who you can meet within that network of that career that you're interested in. And then once you've made this plan, execute that plan. So actually obtain those skills that you know you need. If you know that you need to be a really good writer, figure out how you can get better at writing, more confident, and have better writing skills. Figure out how you can pursue those opportunities that you identified. So maybe you know these internships exist. How are you going to get them? Figure out how those connections that you've made can be built upon and maybe help you to get the connections and the opportunities that you need. And then market yourself. So whether that be through networking events, through LinkedIn, there's all of these different ways that you can promote yourself. But the most important thing is that you just keep moving forward. So keep your eye on your motivation and that excitement and why you're doing this. But while I say to keep moving forward, you also have to remember that it's okay to change directions. So just because you have one aha moment doesn't mean that you're not going to have another one down the road or that things are going to change. So while we can do all that we can to set up a plan and follow that plan, it's important to stay open-minded too, and to recognize that sometimes we do have to change the direction that we're going in, and that's okay. There's a reason that non-traditional students return to the classroom because they've had an aha moment that they realize they don't want to keep doing the thing that they're doing or that they're meant to be doing something else. So they come back to the classroom and have this opportunity to rediscover and to pursue something else. You may have an aha moment now or down the road, or maybe you're already halfway through your degree and you're like, I don't know if I'm pursuing the right thing, but I'm already I'm close. I'm already 20, 21. I've been here a little while. You are so young. So I hear that all the time from my students, well, I'm 24, I can't, I just have to finish this degree and figure it out. But you're young and you have time ahead of you, and time's going to keep going, whether you shift gears or continue with the path that you're on, and think about what that might be like 30 years from now. If you take a job now that you don't love, that you're not passionate about, 30 years from now, you might still not be passionate about it, and you might then decide to turn and go a different direction. Why not explore your opportunities now and think about how maybe now is a good time to become more confident in what we're doing? But ultimately, just like I said, there's so many opportunities in communication, and the Elliott School does an amazing job of trying to expose you to different types of people and different opportunities so that you can get a feel for these different things. But you're probably not getting an amazing feel for all of these things that exist, right? So think about how you can broaden your horizon a little bit and experience new things and discover new things. And if I have 4 main takeaways, it's this. So explore these options, try new things, trust your gut as you go through these things. When you feel like something's wrong or something's right, it probably is wrong or right. You should trust your gut. And then once you discover that aha moment, that's when you go all in. That's when you come up with that plan. That's when you execute it. And that's what I did. And now I'm happy. I love my job. It wasn't always easy. Like I said, I felt like I was having a midlife crisis at 20. I cried on my way home from internships because I didn't know what I was doing with my life. I met with professors struggling to figure out what I was doing, but I figured it out because I kept going and I kept trying new things until I felt like I knew what I wanted to do. And even then, there's been more aha moments along the way. I fell in love with teaching, and I went to Mizzou because I wanted to teach, get my Ph.D. and teach undergraduates and graduate students. And then along the way, I also fell in love with research, which I was not expecting. So that was another aha moment for me. But that can happen too. So I put my contact information up here, but we also have the rest of the session for any questions and answers you have, either about what we've talked about today, the aha moment and how you get there and how you execute it. But I'm also happy to talk more about my research, my life in Nebraska, my life when I was here, whatever you guys want to talk about. Yes.
Okay, so
just going to the sessions today, I've been hearing that statement a lot, trust your gut and go with your gut, stuff like that. What does that look like? I don't know what that means. You can't just,
Yeah. Okay. So
Do you mind if I repeat it?
yes, I was going
Okay.
to, but you can
You
do
go
that
ahead.
role.
Okay. Basically, the phrase "trust your gut," we hear it a lot. And so, what does that mean? What does that mean to Ciera? How do you define that?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting you said, what does that look like? So like in thinking about like visualizing, it's hard to visualize because I feel like it's more of a feeling. But so for example, like giving my personal experience, not touch the mic. So I had heard when I was pursuing like a certain career field, like you're going to be overworked, you're not going to make much money, it's going to be a depressing environment. Like I had heard all these things. I was like, that's okay. Like I know that, and I'm willing to accept those things because I love this field. But then once I got in the field, I started to experience those things more. And at first I was like, it's okay. Like I knew that this is what it was going to be. Like I still love this job. Like I'm very passionate about it. But that feeling started to change. Things started to shift where I just felt like, okay, something is wrong. It just felt like something was wrong inside of me, and that, okay, pause for a second and rethink what you've thought all this time, which was really hard when you're really confident about something. But it's kind of this like feeling that like you try to push away, but it comes back over and over is how I would put it. And it can be a good thing or a bad thing. So when I had my aha moment when I was teaching, it's like, oh, I really think I want to be a college professor. But you kind of need a Ph.D. like to go all in and be a college professor. And so I was like, do I really want to go that route? I mean, there's other routes to it, but I grew up with a mom who taught without a PhD, and I saw what that journey was like, and I didn't think that was the journey for me, but I knew getting a PhD was going to require me to move out of the state and try new things. And so like I had this idea of like what I wanted to do, but I was like, I want to stay here. My friends and family are here. So I just kind of kept pushing it away. But again, it kept coming back. Like, no, I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So this gut feeling is kind of like a feeling that might confirm or often question the things you've been feeling, but it's one of those things where you can't just push it away and forget about it. It's going to come back at least twice or 3 times is how I kind of envision a gut feeling, if that makes sense. But again, it's one of those things like until you feel it yourself, it's hard to know when you're experiencing it. Good question. Any other questions? Yeah.
How did you go about trying to find your internships? I keep hearing different places that you can get internships, but it just seems like there's a widespread, and I don't know where to hone in on.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different ways. I also was creeping on the Comm weeks.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, sorry. Go for it.
Question is, how do you find internships? There are a bunch of different resources out there. What's the best way to go about finding a good internship?
Yes. So I saw on the Comm week schedule tomorrow, there's a thing about internships. That would be a great follow-up to this, and about like building your resume and that type of stuff. Just a little plug for that. Not that I'm getting paid to say that or anything, but I saw that. But so for me, it was a couple different ways that I found them. So part of it was about having good connections with your professors. So if they know what you're interested in and they have a good feel for you in terms of like they know that you're a good student, they know that you care and that you're trying, like you're serious about what you're trying to do, then they can help connect you to opportunities that they know of, either where they worked or where they have friends that worked. They can kind of help you to identify what might be a good field. So I encourage you to get to know your professors and allow them to get to know you, and be a good student, like go to class and show you care, and then they'll want to put in a good word for you. But so having professors that understand what you're interested in can be a good starting point. And then also any sort of communication. I believe when I was here, I don't know what it was called or what it's called now, but like email blasts that went out with like opportunities was how I found a lot of mine. So I interned at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as their special events and marketing intern. And that was one that I just saw advertised in some email that went out. And so keeping an eye on the different communications that you can sign up for. Also looking at where prior students have interned and asking professors who have had students that had similar interests to what you're interested in, asking them where they interned and how they went about it. But so much of it is about watching those like messages that are out there that help you to look for internships and identify them. And then also looking just online, Googling is a big thing too. The Google job search function is actually like really good. And so you can put in internships in that too, and it'll help you find them. Madeline, did you have something to add?
I would also plug the Elliott School's website has a jobs and internship page now.
Yes. Yeah. So if you pull up the Elliott School website, which I think is wichita.edu/ESC/jobs, it will take you to the jobs website, and we try to keep it updated as much as we possibly can. And if you hear of a job or an internship that you would like to share with other people, please send them to Jessica Newman, our favorite Jessica, who is posting them for us.
Yeah. And yeah, it might not be an internship that you're interested in, but it could be one that someone else is in the college, so you could benefit them, and then maybe someone will benefit you down the line too. Good question.
Follow professors on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's another good one.
Can you talk about your process of going from undergrad to grad school?
Yeah,
Is that the thing about undergrad school?
that's a good one. So
Talk about the process of going from undergrad to grad school.
yeah,
I know this
so
story.
I'll be honest in that I had these internships and these jobs. I went from the newsroom to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and I worked part-time, I guess that was during grad school, but as a copywriter and social media consultant. And I had tried these different things, and I had shadowed along the way too, and I just felt like I don't know what I want to do. And so I went to grad school to give myself another 2 years to figure out what I wanted to do. Like, that is the answer. And I don't think that's always the best answer, especially if you are paying for grad school yourself and then decide that you want to do something that you don't need a graduate degree for. But the Elliott School here has such an amazing program in that I didn't have to pay for grad school because I was a teaching assistant. And I had awesome people I could go to talk to about grad school. So we met in her office multiple times, and she helped me to understand, what grad school was all about and what the outcome might be afterwards. So at that point, I didn't know I was going to pursue academia, but it could be a way to still have some more time to explore, because I had started exploring as an undergrad, but didn't explore to the extent that allowed me to figure out what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, it allowed me to go deeper into things too. So like I got to take Madeline's advanced copywriting class as a grad student. I got to take like an entrepreneurship class from some professor that got flown in from like Seattle. I don't remember him too well, but I did not fall in love with entrepreneurship, but I still got to do some exploring within grad school too, which was awesome because there was a variety of opportunities there too. But for me, grad school was about building on my education, because you're getting another degree, so it does make you more marketable, but also giving me more time to kind of explore. And yeah. That's
And if you're interested in grad school, please come see me, and I'll be happy to tell you all about it.
And there's a lot of places you can go for grad school. I only applied to grad. No, we'll get there. I was saying I only applied to grad school here, and if I didn't get in, I probably just would have, gone some other route. Like, I really wanted to go here, but I don't think I realized until I left the Elliott School just how valuable my grad school experience was. I loved grad school. Like, I wanted to go to class. Everybody, it's different than undergrad. Like, you are friends and you are a community, and it's like you're hanging out in class together, and you're having these really interesting discussions about things that other people don't necessarily understand or think about or care to think about. And so it's like you're just getting to hang out and talk about really cool things, but you're becoming a better person, smarter person along the way. And the teaching assistant program here, obviously, like, it's what led me to become a teacher, but it was a really great way to get some other cool experience that I hadn't gotten before. And they equipped me to feel confident to handle teaching a bunch of Comm 111 public speaking students. So, any other questions? Yes.
Until you found your aha moment, like, how did you motivate yourself to keep going and find it?
Okay, so the question is, until you found your aha moment, how did you motivate yourself to keep going until you got there?
I think that's hard, and it kind of comes down to like who you are as an individual. Like, I've always been someone who's pretty motivated when it comes to school. Like, I didn't want to miss class. I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn. I wanted to get the degree. But it is harder when you're unsure that, okay, am I going to end up using this, or am I going to end up having to take different classes and this one's not going to matter? But I think if you have some glimmer of what it is that you're trying to achieve that you can hold on to kind of get you there, whether that be, okay, this is going to get me this step closer to the job I want, or maybe I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and just having a degree, no matter what it is going to be important. Maybe it's some personal motivation that could be like inside the discipline or outside of it. Whatever it is, I think it differs for everybody. But if you have like something that you can hold on to that motivates you, I think that's part of it. But also it's a recognition that, okay, well, if I just give up, I'm never going to get there. And so part of it is like, okay, this is just what I have to do. And I'm going to keep doing it because I have to do it. And hopefully that's going to shift at some point. And it's not going to be because I have to do it, but it's going to be because I want to do it. And if you keep doing it because you have to, hopefully you'll get to that aha moment and it'll get easier, if that makes sense. Good questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you made the shift from journalism, and I mean, one way to look at it is, oh, that was a waste of 3 years of my life. But I know
No.
you didn't. And so how do you translate, yeah, I'm making a shift, but how can I use what I've been spending so much time on to make me better at what I want to be?
Yeah. I think, sorry.
Basically, once you shift, how do you recognize that the time that you spent before you made that shift is valuable?
The easy answer is to know that I had to go through that experience to get to where I am now. Like, it was part of the journey. Like, you have to sometimes experience things that don't go the way you want, or that end up being a quote unquote waste, just to figure out what you want to do. But beyond that, all of the skills that I developed along the way were all things that I still ended up using. Like, storytelling is huge in journalism, but storytelling is huge in strategic communication and in IMC and in advertising. Being able to interview people and talk to people like I'm doing right now. Obviously, I keep doing those things. You know, I have to have communication skills with large groups of people and interpersonally, one-on-one. I am a researcher now. I write a lot. And so learning how to write properly and be a good writer, like all of those things are still skills that I use, even though I'm just using them kind of in a different environment, in a different way. And so much of it is the soft skills too, not just the hard skills. So like knowing how to work in a team, knowing how to be a leader, knowing how to communicate, knowing how to motivate people. Those are things that you can develop in a lot of different places, and it still applies even if you shift gears to a whole other area. Yes.
How did you realize that you were interested in research?
Ooh.
Yeah,
How'd you realize that you're interested in research?
Thank you. I'm terrible at remembering to copy the questions.
Jessica would get me if I didn't do it.
So I knew I loved teaching, and I had always kind of been like a good student, but research, like that's like a big scary word, right? And like we don't even love it as students when we're having to do it for like our campaigns, classes and stuff. But I, again, kind of had to figure out what my niche was within research. So there's all these different types of research. I did research while I was a grad student here. I wrote a whole thesis, and I didn't love it, but I got through it and I did it. But then once I went to the University of Missouri, there were different people there, and they were doing different types of research. And so I met a lot of different people and understood kind of what they did and what their expertise was. And I found someone who did experimental designs. And so they create experiments and they expose people to different messages in the media or different forms of communication. And then they actually are able to measure how that message influences that person. I was like, that's really cool. Like, this is interesting. And it's something that I think I might be able to do. And so I connected with that professor, and she shared her expertise with me. And because I was really interested in that specific type of research, that again was kind of like an aha moment where it gave me the motivation and the excitement and the confidence that, okay, there is a type of research I can do that I can be good at and that I can enjoy. So maybe I can pursue a job that's going to have a large research component to it. So again, it took me going through some research experience that I didn't love, that I was fine at and could have made a career out of, but it didn't excite me. But once I met more people and diversified who I was exposing myself to and what I was exposing myself to, I finally found where I fit in. So much of it is just throwing yourself in and floating around through all these available opportunities till you find the one that is the one for you. Good question.
Anybody else?
Wait, I have one more question.
Sure.
Okay, so you say this like floating around, going between things, finding your way. How do you, I don't know, like ground yourself or find comfort in the unknown, or because it's all outside of your comfort zone. How do you lean into that discomfort without being like afraid or intimidated by it?
Okay. How do you recognize that they're going to be uncomfortable and that you're going to step out of your comfort zone, and how do you make yourself okay with that and adjust?
Yeah.
Is that fair? Okay.
It's a tough one. I think there's a couple things. So know that it's temporary is a big thing. So like I always thought, like this is a temporary uncomfortableness that can prevent a long-term uncomfortableness. If I end up in a job where I'm not confident in what I'm doing or not loving what I'm doing, then that's going to be a lot harder than what I'm doing right now. And so I think that was part of it. Just lost the second part I was going to say of that two-part part. But so you talked about kind of ask your question again as you did, kind of. Or like what part are you most interested in?
I'm interested in like not being intimidated by the unknown or being uncomfortable or in uncomfortable situations.
Okay, so not being intimidated by the unknown or the uncomfortable situations. So I think part of it is just the more you do it, the easier it gets too, which is a hard answer because that doesn't make it easier the first time. But no, also I think the recognition that we've all kind of been there, or that we're all, at this phase of our lives, this is something that a lot of people go through. So you may feel alone in it and you may be going through that experience alone, but recognize that it's okay to feel uncomfortable and that this is going to ultimately help in you growing. So while it's uncomfortable now, think about who you're going to come out as on the end. If you discover something about yourself or develop new skills, new connections, try to focus on the positives of it, which is so hard. But also if you have a community of close friends and you can encourage each other and check in with each other, I think that's been huge for me too, is that I've always had a close group of friends. I had a great group of friends in grad school. I had a great group of friends when I got my Ph.D. I have a great group of friends and colleagues now. And so when we're going through those situations where there's unknowns or maybe insecurities and others in the group have experienced those things and can kind of reaffirm what we're feeling or give us their tips of what they did when they were feeling those things, that can be good too, because it can help you, one, to feel a little less alone, but also to know how to navigate it.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, let's thank Ciera, Dr. Kirkpatrick. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it. If you've not gotten your swag, please do get your swag. We will start again tomorrow morning at 9:30. We have 2 great sessions and then 2 great sessions at 11. And then, as Ciera mentioned, please do come to the lunch because that is your networking opportunity. And if you have any questions about the entire program, Madeline is your point of contact because she knows it backwards and forwards.